Super excited to have you here today again. Listen, we've got an incredible guest today. We wanted to think beyond the music industry. As you know, with AMP Music Summit, we wanted to get thought leaders from outside of music. We wanted pure thought leaders that have impacted companies across the board globally. And one of the first that we reached out to is Stan Slapp, who I'm with here today. You know, he's spent over 20 years studying and leading company culture around the world with offices in, I think, 6 continents. I'll let Stan speak to that. He's been a New York Times best-selling author, and he's impacted billions of dollars by helping leaders and helping everyone actually rethink what they're thinking. And I think this is a pivotal moment right now to bring in thought leaders like Stan to kind of share his thoughts on what we can do as an industry. So Stan, you want to take it from there?
Sure.
Did I miss anything?
Nah, I don't think so. We'll pick it up as we go. First of all, let me get one thing out of the way. We're getting a lot of companies asking us and asking me, so what do you predict is going to happen next? And the only certain prediction that anybody can make is that anybody making a prediction stands a good chance of looking like a complete moron, because so much is uncertain, so much is new and fast. But there are, just to start this, there are 2 things we know for sure. One is that these tough times will not last forever. 2 is that the story of how you stood up to them will. Now, you're going to be living with that story for a long time. It's time you start writing it so it ends the way you want it to. And so where do you even start? Where do you pick up the thread of a solution that will lead to your salvation and triumph? How do you avoid being defined by these times and in fact just deny them in some pragmatic way? And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. And when we're asked to solve problems for clients, and they're very often complex, nuanced, room full of mirrors kinds of problems. And the best way to solve a problem is, and I don't mean to be trite in saying this to anybody watching this, but the most necessary way to begin solving a problem is to define the problem that must really be solved. And that's not always the problem in plain sight. It is often more complex and nuanced by that. And sometimes it's contrarian, the real problem that must be solved. And especially during these tough times with the pressure that this industry is under, the last thing most companies are going to do is chance a counterintuitive move. You're going to go with what has always worked for you, even if you're pretty sure that's not going to work this time. But if you get it right, if you start your thinking about how to solve this problem, and the tactics come after the right kind of focus here. If you start by, like, if you look at this as an equation, you start on the right side of the equal sign and nail that. If we fix this, this is what will get us what we need. And then everything on the left side is math. Yeah. You're going to have to start adding some things. You're going to have to stop doing some things. You're going to have to multiply some things you do, change some things you do. So if you divide and conquer, so if you get that right, and I'm not saying it's easy to just focus on that right now with the intense gun to your head kind of pressure. But if you don't do that, all the energy, all the effort, all the resources may be going in a direction that doesn't ultimately solve the problem for you that's really got to be solved. So the discipline to say, what is the problem that must be solved? And what I would say to you is, if you look at the problem that must be solved, it starts with how do we pass the right test here? Because the test is not simply to survive. It must be to succeed, to emerge even stronger and faster, to have your best years ever, your best revenue years, your best market share growth years ever, which I mean, that just may sound insane right now, but there's a difference. If you're only purpose is to survive these bad times. You're going to hunker down. You're going to stay in your lane. You're going to flinch when you should be punching. But if you say, you know what, the test that we're going to ace here is, how do we have our best years ever this year and next year? How do we do that? Well, then you're going to try new things. You're going to not lose your heart and soul and your confidence. You're going to end up attracting the support of others. So the key is not to focus on where you're starting from now, today, this month, these last 2 months. It's to focus on where you want to end up. And this is not a slight difference. It's going to direct all your solution thinking and tactics. So start, well, it would seem that where you start is by saying, what is the test we have to pass? Right?
Yeah, if you pass the right test, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're even thinking that, but that's actually not even the problem you have to solve. You have to start there, is we're going to pass the right test, not just to survive, but to succeed. And then you work everything back from what would it take to do that. But the real test is, how do you get others to help you pass that test? That is the problem you have to solve. And there are 3 groups specifically that will decide if you pass this test of not only surviving, but to succeeding. Those 3 groups have always decided the success of your business, good times or bad times. Yeah. And they are your manager culture, your employee culture, and your customer culture. Now, I'm not just talking about a bunch of managers, employees, and customers. When these 3 groups formed relationships with your company, they became cultures, self-protective belief systems who are far more resistant to standard methods of corporate influence. Understanding how these cultures really work and how to get them to really work for you has never been more important, because if you can turn these 3 groups into protective evangelists, they have all the power to save you and to put you on the right road towards success, even with these extraordinary circumstances, especially with these extraordinary circumstances. And so that's what I want to talk to you about, is how you do this. And culture, before we get into the specifics here, culture remains the most overused, least understood concept in business. Check this out. Culture was actually Merriam-Webster's word of the year in 2014. And that means, according to the most popular dictionary in the entire English language, culture was the most searched for word in the entire English language. Now, in my company, since culture is all we do, we like to say, if banana had made word of the year instead, by now companies would understand what a banana is and recognize it's not going to peel itself just to feed you. You actually have to know how a culture works to get it on your side. And your culture will give you whatever you want. You just have to give it what it wants first. And what you have to do is turn these cultures, your manager, employee, and customer cultures, into protective evangelists for you, which means the key is, for your internal cultures, you have to give them energy, which we'll talk about in a minute. For your customer culture, you have to give it faith, and not just give, you have to get energy from your internal culture, and from your customer culture, you have to get faith. Not just trust, faith, the deepest level of trust possible. Faith is, I believe, but I don't know. So that's what you have to secure: energy from your internal cultures, faith from your customer cultures, to turn these cultures into protective evangelists for you, so they will protect you and course correct you and talk to your culture for you, because that's where the real impact has. So that's what I want to talk to you about today, because as Seth said, that's all I know. And we could fill many large warehouses with detailed reports of things I know nothing about, although I have a very strong opinion about all of those things. When it comes to culture, this has been our work for decades. So this is what I can talk to you about, is how to get those things from your internal and external cultures so they will help you pass the test you need, which is not just to survive, but to succeed.
But I think, I mean, the key things you talked about too, the culture being built with the managers, the employees, the customer cultures, how they all interact. And I know that bit about faith, I feel like we're all in this moment of faith because no one knows what's going to happen.
Mhm.
And it feels like these cultures, this communal culture of each is all separated. They're separated together, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts? I know when I'm on the phone with managers and different groups, I mean, we've seen across the board the live industry get wiped completely. That was the majority of revenue for a lot of people. And we saw roadies, everyone just decimated. And and I love the thought, like, where do people, because there's a lot of lost hope or loss of faith. Where
Mhm.
do you start? Like, what? I mean, I know you've been in the trenches with so many companies. How do you even start to, I guess, resuscitate someone too who might not be willing to fight yet, and they're still kind of maybe shell shocked, if you will?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the right question to be asking, man. So the first thing for any culture, employee, manager, or customer culture, the first thing is you must set context, because you may be doing a lot of the right stuff,
Yeah.
but unless there's context for it, then there's no linkage. So if you don't if you haven't made a dramatic, emphatic declaration of intention that says this is who we are, that goes below the neck, not some trite mission statement crap. I'm talking about really, this is who we are. And don't mess with us about who we are, but come and join us, and let's go after what we need to go after together. If there's no strong statement from the company that's a declaration of intention, then when you're doing good things, those good things may be perceived as good things, but there's no linkage for the culture. Now, just to be very clear on this, a culture is created when a group of people share the same basic living circumstances. So they band together to share the beliefs about survival and emotional prosperity. What does it take for me to survive in this jungle, in this tribe with this chief, and knowing I'm basically going to be okay? Then how do I get rewarded emotionally and avoid punishment? So a culture prizes surety of its environment. It prizes the known because it knows how to work with the known, how to survive with the known. Now, everything is unknown. So what the culture is looking for is the ability to connect something with something else to make their world more saner. So what you have to do first is declare this intention as a company. Damn it, this is who we are. This is what we believe. It's unshakable. And this is why we believe it. And it has to go below the neck. It's not a business argument, although it's the ultimate business argument. It's a human argument. It's a statement of character and purpose. So then when you start doing things for your customer or your employees, they can say, well, the company said this and did this. Linkage. And if they get enough of those proof points, well, this could be a safe relationship because what you say is connected to what you do. That builds trust and that builds commitment. So if you've never said anything in the first place, and I mean dramatic and emphatic, just as deep as it goes, okay, then all the good stuff you've done, even in the last couple months to react, may have been perceived as good things, but it doesn't give you any lingering impact. So you start there. When it comes, Seth, to answer your question, when it comes to an employee culture, um, because you can't sell it outside if you can't sell it inside, the most important thing to do is to create a culture of accountability. Now, in 2008, when the economy fell, we helped a lot of companies pass that right test back then, and not only survive but to succeed. But back then, you only had to worry about someone touching your investment portfolio. It's not like it is today. This is a whole different level of gravitas. But even then, what we were saying to companies is, who cares why things suck? It's the job of management to bring good answers to bad circumstances. So whining is not a strategy, victim is not a job description, and everybody is in trouble too is not management information. The essence of that is still very real today, because there's no question something happened to you. I mean, you were in this industry, and you didn't have any way really of telling this was happening. It wasn't even reasonable that you prepare for it. Something happened to you. But once it happens to you, what happens next is up to you. You've been served. And from now on, it's what you do about it that matters most. So what you can't have happen is allow a culture of non-accountability. And what I mean by that is if your company culture is allowed to blame external circumstances for internal performance, you might as well give it up now, because you're never going to tap the strength and focus and faith of that culture to get on the solution side for you. It's going to become a victimization culture. It's going to become an apathy culture. It's going to become a non-accountability culture. And so to begin, even in these radically insane times, to begin to send the message that, listen, the best cultures take their sense of self from their accountability, not just for their successes, but for their vulnerabilities. So you need to convert your culture's sense of self is we're the ones who solve stuff like this, even if there's no solution apparently in sight. That's not what this is going to be about, because the thing you have to guard against the most is the ultimate enemy to your people inside the company is going to be weariness. I mean, people are going to move in general in the world from panicked to pissed off to psychotic in some cases.
We're seeing it right now. Yeah.
You can see it happening right now. And so they're panicked, and fear produces anger in the human emotional chronology. So they're angry, and we've accorded leadership to positions, not purpose and people. So they're feeling let down in many cases. They're looking for answers, and they're gonna start to go nuts, as you said. I mean, they're gonna be easier to manipulate. But inside your company, if you can turn this weariness, which would produce resignation and depression and detachment, into energy to say, this is who we are. We take these problems and we fix them somehow. We work to fix them. Then all these tough times become an energy source. This is not soft stuff we're talking about. This is the stuff of hardcore business results. And so it's a matter of saying, we're only going to accept an equation of accountability here, which is, this is what we did or didn't do equals this is what happened. If it didn't fix anything, okay, we'll learn from that. What else can we do or not do, and see what happens? This is the mindset. You have got to have an antidote to the coming weariness. And that is, you've got to be able to take challenges and convert them into energy. We are the kind of company that doesn't take this lying down. If we can't find the answer, then we'll find the answer. And that's if you don't have that,
yeah,
you risk this culture of apathy and exhaustion. And that's going to haunt you long after this crisis passes. It's insidious. It's very difficult to get rid of. Now, what can you do tactically? What can you do about this? Beyond insisting and rewarding the attempts at solutions, even if it's just an attempt that fails, beyond saying all we care about is what we did or didn't do and what happened. If it worked, great. If not, what did we learn from it? Let's keep moving. One of the other things that you can do is what we advise is look around, look up, and look down. There are companies who are figuring out answers. Now, some of them are short-term. Some of them lead your thinking to other answers. Some of them just jar you out of traditional thinking, which is what you need right now. Those companies are not necessarily in your industry. Those companies are not necessarily of your size. Some are bigger, but some of the lessons you can learn are from very small, innovative companies fighting for their survival as well. Some of them are in your country. Some of them are not in your country. I'll give you two examples. And one I can't even give you without grinning like an idiot. Okay, it's just such a great example. Outside of San Francisco, we're in many countries, but my office is and where I live is San Francisco. And right outside San Francisco, there's a town called Half Moon Bay, and in Half Moon Bay, there's a little company, a nonprofit called Sweet Farm. And Sweet Farm's entire business is to repatriate farm animals that have been injured and abandoned or abused. So cows and sheep and goats and llama. And they have a little petting zoo there and a gift shop, and they rely on donations. Okay. Easy to believe that this has not been classified as an essential business by the governor of California, right? So here is Sweet Farm fighting on behalf of these poor animals, about ready to just go out of business and probably never come back. So here's what they've done. They created something called Goat to Meeting. And what they will do is rent a farm animal to you for your next Zoom call. And so this is just such an awesome idea. So you've got 10 people on the call. You're going through your crisis plan. You go, all right, anything, Bob, Mary, what do you got? What do you got? Okay, are we all good to go on this? You look at anybody else got anything? One window is going to go, meh, right? And it's just, it's such an irresistible idea. So you think that's a little thing? Go on Sweet Farm now and try and book a llama for your next Zoom call, man. You got to wait 3 weeks. Okay, they've never made as much money as they're making now. So what do we have here? We have the radical repositioning of value. That's what I'm saying. You get past that, unpack that. What can we learn from that? What can we do from that? I'll give you another example. Disney Bedtime Hotline's been around for many years. If your child,
what is that?
It's called Disney Bedtime Hotline.
Okay.
It's a phone number. And if your kid is having a problem getting to sleep, you can dial the Disney Bedtime Hotline and pick your favorite character, and Minnie Mouse or Mickey Mouse or whoever will sing your child and talk your child into a soothed state and let them go to sleep, right? Now, they still have that. It's a free service. And especially now when kids are picking up, if they're not picking up the actual their circumstances have been affected. They're picking up the tension in the house, having a hard time going to sleep. What is Disney selling you with this? Because it's a free service. They're not selling you anything. What is Disney selling you with this? They're selling you everything that's Disney. They're selling you the soul of Disney. They're selling you the trust you have with Disney. And they're solving a problem for you that you probably don't have the time or capacity to solve right now as well as you should. That's what Disney is selling for you. Again, these are lessons, just 2 small examples, but lessons of what can we unpack from these examples, big companies, small companies, our industry, outside of our industry, our country, another country. You should have your people be energized by scouring for these examples every place they can, bringing them back and going through the activity of unpacking them to find out what you can learn and apply to your business. That energy is the antidote to weariness. Weariness is your biggest enemy when it comes to your employee culture and your manager culture.
I feel like that's such a great example, especially with Sweet Farms, this idea, because I know when I talk to people too, a lot of people are just waiting. When will concerts come back? When will live shows come back? Everyone wants, when will the status quo come back? And it's a matter too of looking at, I think to your point, what do you have? Who are you? What do you stand for? And then how do you bring this, even an experience, how do you bring a different experience to life?
I think you're right. And Seth, especially you're right when it comes to your customer culture. And when you're looking at your customer culture and holding on to them and monetizing that faith in you, there's a few things that have to be done. And the first is, and we would tell this to a company in any circumstances, but it's so much more acute now. The first is to think about what your customer would buy from you if they could buy anything. And what a customer would buy from a company if they could buy anything is almost always not what the company is actually selling. The customer's got to buy it from you and then translate it themselves into the ultimate value. Okay? So if you're in the live industry or any tangent of anything to do with the concert experience, the music experience, I mean, what would they buy from you if they could buy anything? They would buy community. When people go to concerts, they would buy community. They would buy, I'm part of a like-minded, like-hearted community that's larger than just myself. They would buy platform. There's a bigger stage here, a bigger microphone that is sending a message to the world for me that I really want sent, that I believe must be sent. They buy identity. It says something to me to evangelize a certain band or a certain genre of music. And so what that means is this industry, like all industries, has, I'm not trying to be patronizing. I assume you do know this, but in terms of a level setter here in this conversation, is to recognize that like any company, your company sells two things. You sell a product, basically, and then you sell a process, which is the experience somebody goes through to buy and use the product. And in times when it is difficult to sell your product or to sell it in the form that you're used to selling it to, you have to sell the process and use the process to help you define a revised product. And let's get past all the strategic blah blah here. I mean, what do you sell at a concert? Okay, I mean, you sell the music, but somebody can get that from a live album. You sell the merchandise; they can buy that online. Okay, so and I've heard all of these ideas. I've read a lot of ideas, not all the ideas about that are making the news about how do we save the live industry. Well, there's booths where people get like spray-on tans, antivirus sprays, and drive-in concerts, and they're all well-intentioned, some extremely loony attempts, but those are poor replications of what you can't deliver the way everyone is used to. On the other hand, human beings, we're herd animals. We're hardwired at the factory to be affiliative, because in affiliation is protection. These are feral belief systems formed at the beginning of mankind. And of course, the irony here in this crisis is that to be safe, we can't be together. But together is what a concert is all about. I mean, music is the language of a culture. Right? It defines who belongs to the culture and who doesn't belong to the culture. It's an expression of the terrors and exhilarations of first freedoms. It's how we're going to change the world when others can't. Okay, and a concert is proof of affiliation. This is our world. This is our music. I remember being a kid going to my first concerts, and it was this visceral sense of my own restless, searching spirit, because I just was listening to music in my own bedroom, breaking through the chest wall to be surrounded by others experiencing exactly the same thing. It's affiliation. That's what you can sell, is affiliation. You sell that. I mean, you can certainly now sell everybody's got a front row seat. So that's a great thing if you're selling concerts on online and video. But where's the post game? Where's the shared experiences? You could never do that before. People leave the concert, they go their own ways. Bring them together. People have experiences, multi-generational experiences of going to concerts. Go to concerts in the past. Let people review clips of their favorite. Let them talk amongst one another and reconfirm the affiliation that concerts give you. And I mean, it's a magical experience. And there are a lot of ways to monetize that. But again, you have to monetize the right thing. If you're going to try and get people to go back into an environment they consider dangerous or even potentially lethal, that really takes the charm out of it. Even for a young audience who believes that they're going to live forever, it's very dangerous. I mean, obviously, you're reading those reports and those surveys, and the same as I am. That data is saying people just can't even imagine it in some cases. But that doesn't mean they want to do without what concerts give them. That proof of community and identity and platform, that affiliation, sell that. Yep. Sell that. And when it comes to artists, I tell you what, a culture is never more united than when it's aroused, either by inspiration or by attack. For any artist, I would say your audience is under attack. I mean, as a culture, every known rule of survival and emotional prosperity is subject to question now, which means it's unusually susceptible to inspiration. And that's, it's time right now for music to become a movement again. Now, typically in the history of music, every new movement in music from bop to hip hop has been an overthrow of the movement that preceded it, right? But now you don't have to wait for that evolution of one musical genre to another as a culture aged out of one and was looking to claim a new one for itself. Now you have these accelerated circumstances as an artist. You need to turn your music into a movement. You need this to be a new power to and of the people. I mean, this is in symphonic music. A movement is an individual piece of music that is also part of a whole, a larger piece. That's what your music has to be, man. This is leadership. It's time to be an artist, not a star. Okay, and now how do you?
What does that mean too? What does an artist, not a star mean?
When an artist is legitimately empathetic to their people, and if you look at it, what are the forces that cause a movement? Common conditions, common experience, common desire for change. There is your blueprint for crafting your art right there. I mean, you need that turbulence to really stimulate you, and you need to be empathetic to your audience, and you need to move. You need to hold them together. You need to bring them together. You need to give them hope. You need to focus the rage in a way that will serve them the best. You need to do all the things that great art has always done, is speak to people, not to yourself. Okay, it's to speak to your people. If your people are not buying this from you as an artist, it means you're not selling it yet. They're desperate for this. They're desperate for what the connection historically from artist to audience has always been able to deliver. That move, that shift that says, I'm not alone. You're solace for me. You're salvation for me. And you're the key to my own salvation. I mean, I've read so many stories, and of course I've experienced it myself, of artists that helped young people say, there's nothing wrong with who I am. You know, born this way, nothing wrong with who I am. Yeah. That validation and that sense of community and that sense that you must, but you can. That's art. That is that immaculate, empathetic, inspirational transfer from artist to audience. Now, how do you monetize that? You don't have to worry about monetizing it. Your audience will find a way to monetize it. They will tell you, give it to us this way, and this way, and we'll pay for it. Really, you don't have to worry about selling something if people are desperate to buy it. But you have to be selling them what they are desperate to buy. And so this is really going to challenge you. Have you been a star, or are you really an artist?
That's true. Well, understanding too, to your point, I mean, each artist is a brand in their own right. We're talking company culture in that way too.
That's true, but a brand is not a verb. You can't brand yourself. You can't claim to be a brand. It's a tribute. It's got to be given to you. And the rare achievement of a brand is it transfers sustainability of a company to its customers. Customers advertise and sell for a brand and protect it if it stumbles or gets attacked. If you're going to take your business or your artistry and your music as a brand, then yes, you have to do the things that get you branded. And what a brand does is answer a question for people. How can we trust you when you tell us you care? A brand has to answer that question first for people. And that's why I was saying it's a matter of faith, because there's no way that somebody can really tell that for true. They have to give you that leap of faith. And so you have to have that context. This is who I am. This is how I stand for you. We're going to get through this together. This is what it means if you support my art. This is what it's saying about you, because here's what I'm saying for you.
Yeah.
And that is great. That's just great art throughout history. Now, again, in some cases, I just saw this great Netflix bio of Miles, Birth of the Cool, that really haunting, beautiful thing. And Miles was a dick. Okay, I mean, he had a lot of reasons maybe for being that, although a lot of the stuff he did was pretty unconscionable and unreasonable. But people found such beauty in music, but they did the heavy lifting to find that in him, in his art. What I'm saying is, your people are carrying enough right now. They don't need to do that heavy lifting too. Give them what they would buy from you if they would buy anything. And this leads us to a fundamental, necessary shift in business thinking. Again, it's always been a necessary shift, but now more than ever. And that is the difference between selling value and selling relevance. It's always been traditional business thinking that the better your value proposition is, the more successful you're going to be. Well, in this day and age of not only massive buying choices for pretty much anything from anybody, and immediately shared culture to culture feedback amongst your customers, but also these crisis circumstances, just going to market based on value will ensure you're in a margin shredding competitive battle, or you can't sell anything to anybody right now. The companies that will be successful, that will pass the right test, are the ones that will go to market not just based on value, but based on relevance. And here's what I mean by relevance. Just a quick story for you. March 27th, 2003, the end of the first week that America had declared war on Iraq, second Gulf War. I was in Venice, in Italy, doing the keynote speech for some satanic soiree called the Management Conference of Europe, a few thousand people. And I was in the green room waiting to go on stage, and the event producers came in. It was just me in the room, came in and said, listen, don't you get up on stage and start talking about the war. And I said, okay. I mean, my talk is about culture and brand, actually. They said, this is a business conference, has nothing to do with the war. I said, okay. They said, besides, you're no war expert. I'm just sitting here. I said, okay. They said, do you understand? I said, I hear you. Not the same thing. So I got up on stage and I started my talk by saying, listen, let's talk about the war. And I did. And my point there was, you could go through the canals of Venice any day that week, and you could see European peace flags hanging from many, many balconies. So if you knew that somebody had that position, or if there wasn't a flag hanging from the balcony, maybe they just weren't as overt about it. Maybe they had a different position. Maybe they weren't home, but people knew it was happening, and it was definitely moving them. Okay. And yet you could go on the websites of the Fortune 100 every day that week. I know, because I had somebody in my company in the US doing that and sending me the reports. Now, these are the companies that take the most from the world. And there was not a single mention of the war. Not one. There was just products, pricing, promotions. Take. Now, you could have whatever position you wanted on the war. You could have the position on the left or the right at the time, which is even the threat of state-sponsored terrorism is exponentially more dangerous. And if we're going to be recognized as a superpower and position ourselves that way, we have to act aggressively that way. You could have taken the position on the left. We have a president who can't even eat a pretzel by himself, who's got his finger on the nuclear trigger working on daddy issues. But the whatever position you took, the right or the left, the important position during wartime is a position in the middle, because in the middle is where the innocents live, and the innocents who get hurt during the war. Yeah, you could go on the Fortune 100 websites every day that week. There was not a single mention, not saying you had to take a political right or left position. You could have put a Gandhi quote up there. You could have recognized that this is happening. My message on stage from Venice in 2003 to those companies was, listen, that's fine if you only choose to be relevant to your customers when you're trying to sell them something. But there's an awful lot going on in your customers' world. And that means you're choosing to be irrelevant to them for most of the time. And that is a very dangerous business strategy. Now, that was almost 17 years ago to the day. Yeah, 2003. So today, before I got on this call, I went back. I didn't have time to go through the Fortune 100. So I started with the Fortune 10. And on the Fortune 10, there are 3 new companies that have just entered the Fortune 10 this week. They weren't the past couple of weeks. They are understandably in healthcare. Those companies on their homepage, they do say something about the impact, not just what they're trying to sell you or what they're trying to, but the impact of the virus. 2 companies actually, not in healthcare, actually do say something about it, but the rest of them, one is under extreme pressure to be defensive and say something, so it kind of mutters something. The rest say nothing at all. Nothing at all. It's like nothing in the world is happening to their customers except the opportunity to buy more crap from them. Nothing. Nothing. Now, I thought, okay, that's those companies, right? Let's go on the top 10 artists on Spotify. Let's go on their websites. None, zero, nada, nothing. There are mentions of merchandise. There are mentions of music. There are mentions of future tour dates and a lot of photos of them. Nothing, not one in the top 10 artists in Spotify are in any way even acknowledging the profound, heartbreaking circumstances, the anxiety, the uncertainty, let alone selling them something in their music or their merchandise or any way of monetizing that will speak to that. They're not even speaking about it. It's not happening to me. I just bought a $30 million mansion in Florida, baby. Not happening to me. The only one I could find going down, she hasn't had any new music for a while, right? Going down the list is Beyonce. Beyonce's website, you should check that out. It is a beautiful, soulful, giving, empathetic message. Kind of beautiful and soulful like Beyonce. But nobody else, nobody in so again, you're not even going to get, now I didn't check the live industry. I didn't check I just check artists' websites. But you're not even going to be able to sell them what they really want to buy from you. You're not going to be able to get that connection with them unless you at least have some relevance to what's going on in their world. That's where it starts. You don't even have the conduit, let alone the credibility, if you would do that. So I would say start with all of these things.
Well, I think I mean, what I'm hearing from you too is just, the relevance thing too, if I can help with the takeaway for a lot of people too, is just even acknowledging it, because it's happening in the consumers. It's happening to all of us. And the true acknowledgement of it, to your point, like even a Gandhi quote, even these little things you can do to just say, hey, I'm feeling it too, or we're in it together. And there's an aspect of that relevancy that's missing from a lot of companies and a lot of artists.
That's right. That's right, Seth, and a lot of companies. And
yeah.
The one thing that I may not be an artist, I may not be, living in Drake's mansion, and in all fairness, I think that story about his digs was probably planned months before this happened.
Yeah.
But all power to him, man. But I may not be doing that. I may not be dealing with running the live industry. That may not be but the one thing that we all have in common now is, and always, but now, we are human. We are acutely, achingly human. And that means that we're scared, and it means that we're angry in some cases, and it means that that even though we don't have the logical construct for community that we're used to, including going to a concert, that doesn't mean that the need for community is just going to be abated. It's going to find ways. You can see this. You can see people throwing off the traditional definitions of community, and now neighbor is helping neighbor. Young are helping old. Strangers are helping strangers. The community is still going to be there. And I don't mean to sound Machiavellian or Gordon Gekko about this, but you can monetize that and do your customers the greatest service at all if what you are monetizing is that sense of community, that sense of hope, that sense of unity, that sense of affiliation. That is what you still have to sell. Now, you may have to do it a completely different way. You may have to learn from goat to meeting or Disney bedtime or who the hell knows where you're going to have to learn it. But if you can keep your internal culture saying, listen, we're going to pass the right test here. We're the kind of company that takes these hard things and stands up and beats them. Now, how do we do that? Keep them energized as an antidote to weariness. Keep your customer culture knowing, we know what matters most to you. We're going to find a way of doing that. And again, you're not having to worry about selling something if people are desperate to buy it from you.
Right.
But you're going to have some contrarian thinking. And the good news about all this, Seth, you survive and succeed out of these tough times. Here's what you get. I mean, you get a battle-hardened culture, certainly. You get a level of intimacy and credibility with your customer culture you never had before. But the one thing you can finally get is you can stop being a smart company at last. Every company likes to think we're smart people, we're smart company. You know what? You can get a lot of smart people in a room and they can either do nothing at all or they can get themselves in a lot of trouble. What's a lot more important than intelligence is wisdom. And you get wisdom when you add experience to intelligence. And wisdom will save you now and forever. Just being smart will only save you sometimes a little bit of the time. So now you have these acute circumstances. You're not in this alone. That's the good news. You're not in this alone. Everybody's trying to find the answer. And your companies are in severe trauma. You have this acute experience. If you apply your intelligence the right way to this experience, you can come out of this with wisdom that could take you 30, 40, 50, 100 years to get if you got it at all. And this is a real advantage. I'm not trying to be perky. At its best, perky is annoying. At its worst, it's delusional. I'm trying to say that there are ways to succeed, provably succeed. You're going to have to be contrarian. You're going to have to pass the right test. You're going to have to turn these three cultures into protective evangelists to help you do it. But you have things to sell. And if we were in a conversation about the widget industry, like, no, like, not necessarily. You guys are just hosed. In this case, you do have something. You have this you have affiliation, community, identity, hope, power, everything that music and the live industry means to people. But you're going to have to really get in touch with that in a different kind of way to make it work for you.
Stan, I mean, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for hopping on too. Before I tell people where to go, I mean, I just want to wrap up a couple things too, which is truly what you're saying too, is, out of every crisis, there comes community and there comes opportunity. And there's an opportunity for every company out there, every manager out there, every employee out there, everyone to really look at it and go, look, we're in an incredible industry. This is an industry that touches everyone. Music is the universal language. And the desire for music to change, to move our hearts, to move ourselves, to tap into those human emotions has not waned at all. It's still there. Yes. Our ability to bring that experience to people has changed. It's a forced change in behavior, and who knows when it's going to change back. And this idea, I guess, of sitting and waiting in fear maybe, or anxiety going, when do we get back to status quo? We can almost use that time to go, how else can I deliver this incredible experience to the person? How else can we really stand up and stand apart and be the go-to meeting of the music industry, if you will, and really rethink what we're doing and come out of this with some real passion, because this industry is built on passion. This industry is built on that. And I know that you see it, and I know a lot of people see it. And I want everyone that watches this today to understand that we have the ideas, we have the creativity, all of us.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to that. I mean, a company dies from its heart first. And if you do not lose your heart and do not lose your soul, then you have the ability to connect that to others. Music is an expression of humanity. Humanity is what you need to save you right now. Your own humanity is where you got to start to connect with the humanity of others. Now, that may, again, require some counterintuitive, contrarian thinking, but there are plenty of examples out there to pull from. And if you harness your own culture to say, here's who we are, we don't take that stuff lying down. We will get up, we will stand up, we will reach out, we will make this work. It's not going to last forever. Okay. So I mean, that's the thing. And I think to close, really, to use a music metaphor, this crisis is an amplifier, Seth. I mean, it's good people. It just amplifies who you already are. Good people are going to do more good things. You can see it. Bad people are going to be predators and opportunists and do more bad things. Good companies are going to do good things. They're going to be more creative. They're going to be more contrarian. They're going to secure the emotional safety of their employee culture. They're going to be relevant to customers in an entirely new way that gives them something that they need to get through these tough times. Bad companies are just going to, they're going to be the ones on the websites that here's more stuff you can buy from us. Good politicians are going to recognize that the true purpose of leadership is to serve your real constituency. Otherwise, it's corrupt. Bad ones are going to be self-serving, narcissistic, sociopathic, and care more about their own careers and donors than they do about their constituency. The only question that remains is, are there more good people than bad people? And I think you have to believe there are. Otherwise, nothing will ever make sense, even when this crisis passes. And so what I would say to anybody listening to this is humanity only seems inappropriate and dangerous and irrelevant if you don't start from humanity in the first place. What I would say to any manager in this situation is be human first, a manager second. And that is going to connect you with the great strength of these cultures, which are human organisms, and they will save you. They will save you.
Stan, thank you so much for everything, and everyone that's out there today. I know you want to follow up with Stan, I'm sure. Sounds like really getting to those key questions is going to be pivotal. Stan, you can read his books. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He's helped CEOs around the world and impacted billions of dollars of revenue. Stan, where can people reach out to you or connect to you?
Well, the usual LinkedIn and stuff, but don't make me regret this. My direct email is stan@slapcompany.com, company all spelled out. And so we really couldn't talk much more in terms of specific tactics, but I mean, this is the work we really do. I'm happy to help you informally or formally if you really want us to help your company. But even informally, if you're trapped in your office and your desk appears to be melting and you wonder if the culture can smell fear, give me a call, guide you out through the cubicles like the first Matrix movie. Stan@slapcompany.com. The website is slapcompany.com.
Thanks again for everything, Stan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Take care.
Yeah.